My parents told everyone I dropped out of my PhD program. They said I was working retail at a mall, folding sweaters for minimum wage. They told my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, even my grandmother on her deathbed. What they didn't know was that I was sitting in the audience at their own lie. And I had a plan. It was a cold December evening in 2020. I had just driven 3 hours from my university apartment to my parents' house for the annual family dinner. The driveway was full of cars I recognized. My Aunt Karen's minivan, my Uncle Dave's truck, my cousin Sarah's little Honda. I sat in my car for a long moment, watching the warm light spill from the kitchen windows. I could hear laughter inside. I hadn't told my parents I was still in my PhD program, not because I was ashamed, but because the last time I brought it up, my mother had sighed and said, "We just thought you'd go to medical school," like a real doctor. That was 3 years ago. After that, I stopped mentioning it. I let them assume whatever they wanted. I didn't know they were building a whole alternate reality around their assumptions. I walked inside and the smell of roasted chicken hit me. My mother was in the kitchen, flour on her apron, stirring something at the stove. She looked up when I entered and gave me a tight smile. "Claire, you're here." "I'm here," I said. She didn't ask about work. She didn't ask about my life. She just nodded and turned back to the stove. I found Sarah in the living room, sitting on the couch with a glass of wine. She grinned when she saw me. Sarah is 3 years older than me, the only cousin who ever treated me like a person instead of a project. We hugged, and she whispered, "Your mom is in rare form tonight." "Define rare form," I said. "Just wait." I sat down next to her. The room was full. Aunt Karen, Uncle Dave, my grandmother Eleanor in her favorite armchair, my father Robert at the dining table with a beer. My father glanced at me, grunted, and went back to his phone. Dinner was served at 7. We gathered around the big oak table, passed the mashed potatoes, made small talk about weather and neighbors. Then my Aunt Karen leaned forward and said, "So, Claire, how's the job hunt going?" I froze. A job hunt. I was in my final year of a PhD program. I was weeks away from defending a dissertation on organometallic catalysis. But my aunt didn't know that. My mother answered before I could. "Oh, you know," she said, waving her fork. "She's still at Macy's, folding sweaters. It's not ideal, but she's making it work." The room went quiet. Aunt Karen looked at me with pity. Uncle Dave shifted in his chair. I said nothing. I took a bite of green bean casserole and chewed slowly. "It's just temporary," my mother continued. "We're encouraging her to think about community college. Maybe a trade, something practical." My father nodded. "Nothing wrong with honest work." I set my fork down. My hand was steady. Inside, something cold and sharp was waking up. After dinner, I helped clear the dishes. Sarah joined me in the kitchen. She was quiet for a moment, then pulled out her phone. "Claire," she said, "I need to show you something." She opened the family group chat. It was called Mitchell Family. I was not in it. Sarah had been added by my mother years ago, and she'd never said a word to me about it until now. She handed me the phone. The message was from my mother, dated a month ago. Claire dropped out of her program. She's working at Macy's full-time now. We're so disappointed. She had so much potential. We don't know what went wrong. Below it were replies, sad emojis, sympathetic comments from aunts and uncles, a message from my grandmother saying, "Praying for her." I scrolled up. There were more messages. Dozens of them, spanning over a year. "Claire's at the mall today. Saw her folding sweaters. She looked so tired. We think she's given up on higher education altogether. She won't listen to us. We've tried everything." I read every single one. I did not blink. I did not breathe. Sarah watched me. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know how to tell you." I handed her phone back. My hands were still steady. "I'm still in my program," I said quietly. "I'm finishing my PhD. I graduate in June." Sarah's eyebrows went up. "Wait, your mom knows that, right?" "No," I said. "She doesn't." I walked back into the living room. My mother was sitting on the couch, laughing at something my aunt had said. My father was in his recliner, watching football. The lights were warm. The family was happy. I sat down across from my mother. She glanced at me. "Everything okay, honey?" "Fine," I said. "Just tired." She nodded and turned back to her conversation. I smiled. I took a sip of water, and I thought, you have no idea what I'm about to do. If this story moves you, please consider subscribing to K6 Karma in the family. It means the world to have you along for the journey. I walked back to my cousin Sarah's car that night with my phone burning a hole in my pocket. The screenshot she'd sent me was still open on my screen. Claire dropped out. "She's working at Macy's." "We're so disappointed." I read it 4 times, 5 times. Then I locked my phone, put it in my bag, and drove the 3 hours back to my university apartment without listening to music or podcasts. I needed silence. I needed to think. The next morning, I called Dr. Kong. "Patel, can I come see you today?" I asked. "Is something wrong?" Her voice was sharp with concern. I'd never called her outside office hours before. "No," I said. "Something's right. I want to move my defense up." There was a pause. "You're ready?" "I've been ready for 6 months." Another pause. Then I heard her smile through the phone. "Let me check the schedule. I'll call you back." She called back 20 minutes later. "April 14th, 9 a.m. I wrote it on the whiteboard in my apartment and underlined it 3 times. I told no one, not my parents, not my aunts or uncles, not even Sarah. I wanted my defense to be the quietest victory in history. The next 4 months were a blur of data tables, spectral analysis, and practice presentations. I rehearsed my defense in the mirror, in the empty lecture hall, in the shower. I knew my research better than I knew my own face. Every NMR spectrum told a story. Every catalytic cycle was proof that I belonged in that room. April 14th arrived on a gray Tuesday morning. I put on my best blazer, the dark blue one my grandmother had given me 3 Christmases ago. I walked into the conference room at exactly 8:58 a.m. Dr. Patel was already there, along with 3 other faculty members from the chemistry department. They smiled at me. I smiled back. The defense took 2 hours and 17 minutes. The committee asked hard questions about my methodology, my yield calculations, my proposed mechanisms. I answered everyone. I showed them data they hadn't seen before. I referenced papers they hadn't read yet. At 11:19 a.m., Dr. Patel stood up. "Congratulations, Dr. 5. Mitchell." She shook my hand. The other professors stood and applauded. I stood very still and let the moment settle around me like a coat I'd been holding for years. I called Sarah that afternoon. "Did you do it?" she asked. "He did it?" She screamed so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Oh my God, Claire. Oh my God. Your parents are going to lose their minds." "Not yet," I said. "They don't know." "When are you going to tell them?" "I'm not going to tell them. I'm going to show them." I explained my plan. Graduation was June 15th. The university arena seated 6,000 people. Every graduate could request up to 4 tickets for family members. I requested 2 under a completely fictional name, a Mrs. Ann Chen, and had them mailed to my parents' house. I knew they'd open the envelope. They opened everything that looked official. And I knew my mother, who had spent 2 years telling everyone I'd failed, would not be able to resist a mystery invitation from the university she claimed I'd left in disgrace. She would come. I was sure of it. I ordered my doctoral regalia the same week. The ceremonial hood, the velvet tam, the gold tassel. When the box arrived, I opened it on my kitchen table and just looked at it for a long time. 2 weeks before graduation, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Claire, did the university send you extra tickets by mistake? We got an envelope with 2 tickets to some commencement ceremony. Must be a clerical error." I stared at the screen. My heart was beating fast, but my fingers were steady. "Not sure," I typed. "Maybe it's a sign. You should go." I hit send and put my phone face down on the table. 3 seconds later, it buzzed again. "What's that supposed to mean?" I didn't reply. Graduation was 11 days away. I had the evidence. I had the diploma. I had 2 tickets sitting in my parents' kitchen, waiting for them to decide their curiosity was stronger than their contempt. I smiled, took a sip of water, and thought, "You have no idea what I'm about to do." I texted back. Maybe it's a sign. You should go. I knew they would. 3 weeks before graduation, I got a text from my mother. Aunt Karen is hosting a dinner Saturday. You should come. Everyone misses you. I knew what that meant. Everyone misses you, translated to everyone wants to see the failure in person. I said yes anyway. I drove the 3 hours on Saturday afternoon. I wore a simple sweater and jeans. I let my hair air dry. I wanted to look exactly like someone who might work at Macy's. The house smelled like roasted chicken and resentment. Aunt Karen hugged me at the door. Her grip was tight, her eyes assessing. Claire, honey, how are you? Good, I said. Really good. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Behind her, I could see my mother in the kitchen, arranging a platter of vegetables. My father was already seated at the dining table, a beer in his hand. Uncle Dave was next to him, talking about football. I took the empty chair at the far end of the table. Sarah sat down next to me a minute later. She squeezed my arm under the table and said nothing. Dinner was pleasant in a hollow way. The food was fine. The conversation was surface level. Aunt Karen talked about her new car. Uncle Dave complained about his boss. My mother laughed too loudly at things that weren't funny. And then my father decided to make his contribution. He set down his fork. He wiped his mouth. He looked at me with that expression I knew too well, the one that said he was about to say something cutting and call it humor. So, Claire, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, how are the sweaters at Macy's? The table went quiet. Aunt Karen's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Uncle Dave looked at his plate. Sarah's hand went still on my arm. I felt the words land like a slap, but I didn't flinch. I didn't look down. I met his eyes and smiled. They're fine, I said. Lots of colors. My mother let out a nervous laugh. Robert, don't tease her. Just asking, he said. He took a sip of his beer. Just curious how the folding business is going? I picked up my water glass. I took a long, slow drink. When I set it down, I said nothing. The conversation stumbled back to life. Aunt Karen started talking about her neighbor's dog. My mother refilled the breadbasket. But I felt Sarah's eyes on me. And I felt my grandmother's eyes, too. Eleanor Mitchell was 83 years old. She sat at the head of the table in her blue cardigan, her hands folded in front of her plate. She hadn't eaten much. She was watching me. When I caught her gaze, she gave me a small, almost invisible nod. She knew something was off. She didn't know what, but she knew. I stayed for dessert. Lemon cake, my mother's specialty. I ate a slice. I thanked Aunt Karen. I hugged my grandmother goodbye, and she held onto my hand a second longer than usual. Drive safe, she said. I drove the 3 hours back to my apartment. I didn't listen to music. I just thought about my father's voice saying sweaters at Macy's. I thought about my mother's nervous laugh. I thought about how they had no idea what was coming. At 9:47 p.m., my phone buzzed, a text from my mother. We just want what's best for you. You know that, right? Maybe consider community college? You could still do something useful. I read it 3 times. Then I typed a single character, a graduation cap emoji. I hit send. 20 seconds later, 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. My mother texted back, "What's that supposed to mean?" I stared at the screen. I thought about my defense. I thought about my regalia sitting in the closet. I thought about the tickets I'd mailed to their house. I put my phone in my nightstand drawer and closed it. In a reply, the morning of June 15th, I woke up at 5:47 a.m. I didn't need an alarm. I'd been ready for this day for 6 months. My regalia was hanging on the back of my bedroom door. The ceremonial hood was burgundy and gold. The velvet tam sat on top, the gold tassel dangling like a promise. I ran my fingers over the fabric. It was real. I was real. I drove to the arena at 7,001 feet. The parking lot was already filling with families. I saw mothers in floral dresses and fathers in stiff khakis. I saw grandparents holding bouquets. I saw siblings squirming in uncomfortable shoes. And I thought, none of them know what I know. None of them are about to do what I'm about to do. The graduates lined up in the hallway behind the stage. I stood with my cohort, all of us in identical regalia. Someone was crying. Someone was laughing. I was still. At 9:02 a.m., the processional started. Pomp and circumstance filled the arena. 6,000 seats, most of them full. I walked in time with the music, my eyes scanning the crowd. Row 17, that's where the tickets placed them. I spotted my mother first. She was wearing a blue dress I'd never seen before. My father was next to her, arms crossed, looking bored. They both stared at the stage like they were waiting for a show. They had no idea they were in it. The speeches were a blur. The provost talked about perseverance. The dean talked about excellence. I sat in the third row of graduates, my hands folded in my lap, my heart steady as a metronome. Then the moment came. The provost said, "I now present the candidates for the Doctor of Philosophy degree." The department chairs started reading names one by one. Each name was a victory. Each name was a thesis defended, a research project completed, a life put on hold for 3 years. And then Dr. Codd, later Mitchell. I stood. I walked across the stage. The dean shook my hand. The provost placed the hood over my head. I turned to face the audience. 6,000 people. I saw exactly 2 of them. My mother's mouth was open. My father's arms had dropped to his sides. They looked like they'd been slapped. I smiled. A small, closed-mouth smile. Then I walked back to my seat. The rest of the ceremony lasted another 40 minutes. I don't remember a single word of it. I sat still, my diploma in a leather folder on my lap, and I waited. I thought about the sounds from that family dinner. I thought about my mother's voice saying Macy's like it was a punchline. I thought about my father's gruff laugh. I thought about the emoji I'd sent 3 weeks ago. And I thought, they still don't get it. The recessional began. I filed out with the other graduates. The lobby was chaos. Balloons, hugs, crying, flash photography. I slipped through the crowd, weaving between families, until I found the corner near the east entrance. That's where I stood. That's where I waited. It took them 6 minutes to find me. I saw my mother first, her eyes wide, her lips pressed into a thin line. My father was 2 steps behind her, his face red. They walked toward me like they were approaching a car accident they'd caused. My mother stopped 3 feet away. "What is this?" she said. Her voice was sharp. I held out the diploma folder. "Gimme it." She didn't move. "Open it," I said again. She took it. Her hands were shaking. She unclipped the leather cover and pulled out the certificate inside. I watched her eyes move across the words. Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry, Claire Mitchell. Her face went white. My father reached over and took the diploma from her hands. He stared at it. He stared at me. He didn't say anything. "I earned this," I said. My voice was calm. "I defended my dissertation in April. I published 2 papers. I received a fellowship for $30,000 a year. And you told everyone I was folding sweaters at Macy's." My mother opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I just thought, "No," I said. "You didn't think. You lied." I pulled out my phone. I scrolled to the screenshot Sarah had sent me in December. I turned the screen toward them. The family group chat. My mother's message. Claire dropped out. "She's working at Macy's. We're so disappointed." My father's face went pale too. "I have screenshots of everything," I said. "Every message, every lie, for the last 1.5 years. My mother started to cry. Not real tears. The kind of tears you use to make yourself the victim. "We were just trying to protect you." "Protect me from what? From the truth?" "We wanted you to go to medical school," she said. Her voice cracked. "We wanted what was best." "You wanted what looked best," I said. "At dinner parties. To your friends. To the family. You were embarrassed of me because I didn't do what you wanted. And instead of being honest, you invented a failure to prove yourselves right." I reached into my pocket. I pulled out the small envelope I'd been carrying since that morning. It contained one thing, a printout of every screenshot. I held it out. "Here," I said, "you can explain this one to the family." My mother didn't take it. I set it on top of the diploma folder. She was still holding. I looked at my father. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'm done," I said. I turned and walked away. The lobby noise was just white. I walked past families hugging, past parents crying, past grandparents taking photos. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I made it 10 steps before I heard my mother's voice. Claire, Claire, wait. I didn't wait. Then I heard my father's voice. Low, sharp, aimed at my mother. Linda, what did you do? I didn't slow down when I heard my father's voice. I kept walking. The exit doors were 30 feet ahead. 20, 10. I pushed through them and the June heat hit me like a wall. I stood there for a moment, blinking in the sun. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline. I walked to my car. I got in. I sat with both hands on the steering wheel and took 3 slow breaths. Then I pulled out my phone. I opened my email app. I typed in the address list I'd made the night before. Aunt Karen, Uncle Dave, Grandmother Eleanor, Cousin Sarah, 3 other aunts, 2 uncles, 7 cousins, all of them in one BCC field so no one could reply. All. I attached the screenshots, all 6 of them. The group chat messages from my mother. The one where she wrote, Claire dropped out. She's working at Macy's. We're so disappointed. The one where my father added, she always was the weak one. The one where my Aunt Karen replied with sad emojis. I wrote the email body. 4 sentences. I earned my PhD in chemistry today. They knew. They chose to lie. I'm done. I hit send. I sat in the parking lot and watched my phone. 3 minutes passed. Then 4. Then my phone buzzed. Aunt Karen, I answered. Hello? Claire, her voice was cracked. Claire, I just read it. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I said nothing. I believed her, she said. I believed every word. I told people. I told Cheryl at work. I said my niece couldn't finish her degree. Oh, God. It's okay, I said. It wasn't. But I didn't have energy for anger at her. It's not okay, she said. She lied. For a year and a half. She sat at my table and said you were folding sweaters. And I believed it. I never called you. I never asked. I watched a family walk past my car. A grandmother in a sundress. Toddler holding a balloon. I'm not mad at you, I said. I'm done being mad at anyone. I'm just done. She started crying. Can I make this up to you? Or can I? You don't need to, I said. Just tell people the truth if it comes up. I will, she said. I swear I will. We said goodbye. I hung up. My phone buzzed again. Sarah, a text message. You did it. I'm screaming. I smiled and typed back. I did it. Check your voicemail, she wrote. Grandma called you. I opened my voicemail. 1 new message from Eleanor Mitchell. I pressed play. Claire, it's your grandmother. Her voice was thin. Old. But steady. I just got your email. I read those messages. And I want you to know I'm proud of you. I always knew you were smart, smarter than any of them. Your mother, well, I'll speak to her myself. But you don't worry. You go be a scientist. You go be a doctor. And you never look back. I listened to it 3 times. Then I saved it. I drove home. The 3-hour drive felt like 30 minutes. I don't remember the road. I remember the sky. Blue, wide, open. When I got to my apartment, I checked my phone again. 17 unread messages, most from numbers I didn't recognize. Cousins, aunts, people I hadn't spoken to in years. They all said the same thing. I'm sorry I believed them. I had no idea. You're amazing, I replied to none of them. Then my mother called. I watched her name appear on my screen. Linda Mitchell. It rang 4 times. I didn't answer. It rang again. I didn't answer. It rang again. I blocked her number. Then I blocked my father's. I opened my settings and changed my phone number request to a new provider. That would take a day. For now, I turned my phone on silent and set it face down on the counter. I walked to my whiteboard. The one where I'd written my defense date 7 months ago. I erased it. Then I wrote 4 words. Dr. Cope. Lady Mitchell. I stood there and looked at it. My mother left 17 voicemails that night. I deleted them all without listening. I drove through the night. 3 hours back to my apartment with the windows down and the stereo off. I didn't mean music. I needed silence. The next morning, I packed. My postdoc started in 3 weeks, a university in a different city, 500 miles away. I'd accepted the position 4 months ago and told no one. Not my parents, not my cousins, not even Sarah, though I planned to tell her once I was settled. I rented a U-Haul trailer and loaded my life into cardboard boxes. My lab notebooks, my regalia, carefully folded. The whiteboard with Dr. Claire Mitchell still written on it? I wrapped it in a blanket and put it in the back seat. I changed my phone number that afternoon. New provider, new area code. I sent the new number to exactly 7 people. Dr. Patel, my department chair, the postdoc coordinator. Sarah, 3 friends from the program. I did not send it to my parents. The first week in the new city was quiet. I found an apartment near campus. I unpacked boxes. I set up my lab bench. I attended orientation and met my new colleagues. They called me Dr. Mitchell. Every time someone said it, I felt something settle in my chest. Sarah called on a Tuesday evening. I was at my kitchen table, grading undergraduate lab reports. "You're never going to believe this," she said. "Me." She told me about the fallout. My mother had called every relative she could reach. She told them I had forged the screenshots. She said I photoshopped the group chat messages. She said I was bitter and jealous and making it all up. Aunt Karen didn't believe her, neither did Uncle Dave. Neither did my grandmother, who had received my email and read every screenshot twice. "Grandma called her," Sarah said. "She told Linda she was ashamed of her. I wrote that down in a notebook. I didn't know why. I just wanted to remember it." "There's more," Sarah said. My father had moved to the guest room. He told my mother he couldn't look at her. He said the lie was her idea and she had dragged him into it. He said if she had just told the truth, none of this would have happened. "He's talking to a divorce lawyer," Sarah said. I asked how she knew that. My mom heard him on the phone. He was asking about custody of the house. I felt nothing. That surprised me. I'd expected to feel something. Triumph, maybe. Or relief. But all I felt was a quiet stillness, like the air after a storm passes. The wedding invitation arrived 3 days later. My cousin Amy was getting married in October. She'd sent it to my new address. On the inside, she had written a note in pencil. "Save me a seat at the ceremony. I want you at the family table. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave." I RSVP'd the same day. 2 weeks into my postdoc, I submitted my first paper. It was based on my dissertation research, a new catalytic method for carbon-carbon bond formation. I'd been working on it for 18 months. Dr. Patel had helped me revise it. She said it was the best work she'd ever seen from a recent graduate. I didn't think about my parents while I waited for the peer review. I thought about my lab, my experiments, my students, my life. The acceptance came on a Thursday. I was in my office, reviewing data, when the email arrived. "Dear Dr. Mitchell, it is our pleasure to inform you that your manuscript has been accepted for publication in the Journal of the American Chemical Society." I read it 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and sat in the dark for a moment. I thought about what they had tried to take from me. My degree, my reputation, my place in the family. They had built a narrative where I was a failure, and they had told it to everyone who would listen. And I had built something else, something real. I picked up my phone and called Sarah. "My paper got accepted," I said. The top journal. She laughed. "Claire, that's incredible." "It's my first one as Dr. Mitchell." She was quiet for a moment. "Does Linda know?" "I don't care if she knows." I hung up and looked at the acceptance email again. I thought, this is what they tried to take from me. The letter came on a Tuesday in October. I recognized the handwriting immediately. My grandmother's. The return address was from a law firm I didn't know. I opened it standing in my kitchen. A check for $10,000. And a note on yellow legal paper, written in her shaky hand. "I always knew you were doing something important. I just didn't know what." Your mother is a fool, but she's my daughter, so I kept quiet. I'm proud of you, Dr. Mitchell. I always was. I folded the note and put it in my desk drawer. I didn't cry, but I felt something close to peace. That afternoon, I called Sarah. She picked up on the first ring. "Did you get the letter?" she asked. "Just opened it." "Grandma left you 10 grand. She left your mother the china set and a note that said, 'Try not to break it.'" I laughed. "That sounds like her." "She knew," Sarah said, "about everything." She told me once, 6 months before she passed. She said, "Claire isn't working at Macy's. She's too smart for that." I sat down. "She never said anything to me. She didn't want to make it harder for you. She figured you had a plan." I looked out the window. The leaves were turning. "Oh, I did have a plan." "Yeah, and it worked." Sarah told me the rest. My mother was still telling people I dropped out. But no one believed her anymore. The family had seen the screenshots. They had seen the diploma. They had seen me walk across that stage. Linda tried to spin it. She said I had forged the screenshots. She said I had manipulated the university. She said I had always been difficult. Aunt Karen told her to stop. Then Uncle Dave stopped taking her calls. Then my grandmother, before she passed, told Linda she was ashamed. "Your father moved back into the master bedroom," Sarah said. "But they don't talk much. They sit at opposite ends of the dinner table. It's awkward. People don't invite them to things anymore." I didn't feel sorry for them. I felt nothing. "That's the truth. What about you?" Sarah asked. "How's the professor thing going?" I looked at my email. There were 3 messages in my inbox. Heart. 1 from the department chair, 1 from the dean, 1 from the tenure committee. "I'm up for tenure," I said. "They're reviewing my file next month." "Claire, that's huge." "It's just a review." "It's not just a review. You're 32 years old. You're up for tenure. They said you'd never finish your PhD. I smiled. "I know. We talked for another hour. She told me about her job. She told me about her new boyfriend. She told me my mother had asked about me twice, and both times, Sarah said she didn't have my number. She didn't. Neither do they." I hung up and walked to my office. The hallway was quiet. Most of the faculty had gone home. I unlocked the door and sat at my desk. The walls were covered in student posters. My diploma was framed on the wall behind me. Dr. Claire Mitchell, Doctor of Philosophy and Chemistry. I opened the drawer and took out my grandmother's note. I read it again. Then I put it back. I thought about what they had tried to take from me. I thought about the 3 years I stayed silent. I thought about the nights in the lab, the failed experiments, the long drives home. I thought about the moment I handed them the diploma. I thought about my grandmother, who had known all along. I closed the drawer. Silence is a weapon. You don't have to defend yourself against lies. You can let the truth speak when it matters most. And sometimes, the best revenge is success. I saved my grandmother's note in my desk. I locked the office. And I walked home. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe for more.